Welcome again to my Kerbal Space Program Super Hardcore playthrough. In the last episode, we managed to accumulate almost 70,000 credits in funding. We should be able to afford to build multiple copies of this Kerbal ship, but failure is not an option here, and we have other contracts to do, which involve namely the Mark 16 parachute and the Mark II radial mount parachute. So we'll get rid of one of these engines. We'll rename this Test. We'll add some more liquid fuel tanks onto this thing. We'll check our DV and our thrust to weight ratios, and then we'll add the parts that we are going to be testing. And there's actually a slight overlap to this, so we should be able to pull this off. We'll switch these around, and then we'll be off. So the neat thing about test flights is that you can actually chain multiple test items onto the same flight. And I discovered this way back in my early days of playing Kerbal Space Program. And I especially want to make use of this in this super hardcore playthrough. So watch as we climb up to 100 meters per second, but we want to slow down to about 100 meters per second anyway. In order to test the Mark II radial mount parachute. So we'll wait until we get around 10,500 meters to actually activate the parachute, and then we'll do the whole test in one fell swoop. As you can see, I didn't immediately jettison this solid fuel engine, because I want to keep that stage on for the sake of inertia, because we may need it. Yeah, I knew we'd need these things, so we're just about approaching the 10,500 meter mark. So far, so good. We've done it! I'll see you back at the ground, folks. I do love me a safe touchdown. So, off camera I did a little more science, and of course I felt I had to jettison the solid fuel engine, because I was afraid it might actually cause the chutes to fail. But no matter. Though both tests were a resounding success. We got 1.7 more science from that, along with the contracts, which earned us, let's see that, 3 science in total, so we can accept some more missions. This one looks like a doozy. This one should be good enough. And of course, wow, it's got some real difficult stuff there. We'll go for orbit curbing this time now. And at present we don't have enough to unlock general rocketry or stability just yet. So we'll get to the vehicle assembly building. And this time round, I've remembered to put Valentina in this ship. And we should have no trouble getting into orbit this time. So we have ignition and blast off. And look how fast we're accelerating this time. Once again, I'll show you the cockpit view, just because I've been playing this for years, really. We are now at, this is the mark that you want to start your gravity turn at as an advanced user, or if you are a novice, you might want to wait until 1,000 meters. So we just ran out of fuel on the first stage. I just didn't notice that for a moment because I was commenting here. You really want to be careful with your commentary. And as we carefully ascend, you can clearly see how far this is coming up. Whoa! What exploded? Oh, I think I see what happened here. Never mind, that was a minor fluke, and that should have no bearing on whether we can actually get this thing into space. Anyways. So now we are at 45 degrees at pitch, we are at 350 meters a second, and we just passed the 10,000 meter mark. That is quite a doozy, I'll say. We are going pretty fast, we really are. At some point, we're going to start seeing drag here. I can vaguely see it. We might be alright, actually. The nice thing about being in the cockpit is that you can actually control the throttle directly by pulling this lever here. But you still want to be able to watch out for drag, and it is coming up right now. And I'm thinking you should be able to see it from the cockpit window as well. So yeah, that's drag coming up here. This is why we need to save some fuel. We are coming up to 13,500 meters. It's only about... We should be able to make it into space. We should be able to make it, no problem. Any moment now, the orbital velocity is going to come up. Usually it's when we've passed the 35,000 meter mark. So as you can see, we are really struggling with drag here. So we want to save some fuel. We are just about making it past 36,000 meters. And our orbit does seem to be just about reaching space. So I'll see you when I've reached the height of the orbital, of the trajectory, and I'll see if we've made it. Turns out we didn't make it this time, but I'll see you back on the ground. And we'll try this again. Looks like we've made it all the way to Kerbin's highlands, so we can take the opportunity to do some more science. So we put Valentina back in the pod, Then we'll do another crew report, and here we have crew assessment of the situation in Kerbal's Highlands. We'll try this again, back at the center. It's time for a test flight, and this time, succeeding in this test should allow us enough science to unlock general rocketry. So we have blast off here, and our mission is to get to 3,000 meters at a speed of 100 to 260 meters per second. Should be easy enough. I'll see you there. About approaching the mark, and there we go. We did it. So those were only a test, so it doesn't really matter if they should end up failing. But we'll save that other chute for when we really need it. Yeah, that solid fuel booster is just about to run out. Then we can activate this parachute. It should be safe to deploy it at 350. There we go. I'll meet you at the ground. You can see another major reason why people won't use this view, because it may make them seasick, space sick, well, whatever actually makes any sense. There we go. With all that extra science, we should have enough to unlock the next tier of rocketry. And we do! So we'll unlock general rocketry. We'll also purchase 2 of the 3 parts, because I don't think we'll need the Reliant fuel engine, which can't be gimbal thrusted, as you can see here, in comparison to the swivel engine, which has a 3-degree vectoring range. And we may as well accept another mission. Now these ones are going to need space planes, but we don't have the tech for those yet. So we'll do with testing of the coupler in flight, shall we? Yeah, we'll do this one. And with these new, larger fuel tanks, building Kerbal 1 just got that much cheaper. And since we have multiple of these decoupler thingies that we need to test, even if we don't manage to do it the first time, we still have a few more chances. On the other hand, I might as well add a thumper booster to this instead. Remove some of the solid fuel from this thing because it was overweight. On the other hand, we can do the other way around, and we can put the solid fuel back in here, and we can remove some of the solid fuel from these higher boosters. And that should just about do it. Putting the solid fuel in the larger, more efficient boosters will also mean a greater fuel efficiency, and therefore will have greater chance of actually getting into orbit. So here's good old Kerbal back on the launch pad, and let's get this baby into orbit. As usual, we're going to start our gravity turn at 500 meters up. So the real reason I'm actually going to this view is to speed this up a little, because my machine is slow as fuck, and I barely undershot the 500 meter mark, but that shouldn't really matter. We're going to get into space this time anyway. So I'll see you up there. Okay, so we didn't exactly get into orbit this time, but we should be able to complete the test task. At this rate, getting Valentina back down to Kerbal will take all day. Meanwhile, we'll launch another Kerbal. Kerbal 2 this looks like this. You know what? At this rate, getting Valentina back down to Kerbal will take all day. And you know what? This version of Kerbal, this configuration, looks like it just might do. So we'll check that we have Jeb here. We do. And we'll go ahead and launch. To avoid spoiling it for all of you, I'm gonna launch this baby on screen. And we'll see how far we can get up with this thing. At present, it looks like we might just do it. Jeb might be the first Kerbal to go into orbit. Although Valentina was the first one actually in space. And I'll use this view, the outside view, just so you guys won't get space sick, air sick, sea sick. Pretty much the same thing really. So we're just about at the 1,000-meter mark, and we've already got a decent turn. Gravity turns are the key to getting into orbit, practically. You can't just go up, then farther up, and expect to be able to achieve orbit from that trajectory. It just doesn't work that way. Orbits actually work via gravity, and so they need enough lateral velocity to stay, well, orbits. Well, all orbits can actually be described by conics, whether they be circular, elliptical, parabolic or hyperbolic, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Long story short, a parabolic orbit has a velocity equal to the escape velocity for its direction. And a hyperbolic orbit has a greater such velocity. Well, greater velocity than the escape velocity of the body it is escaping anyway. So, we're at the 9,000 meter mark, and we have a 340 meters a second. I'm debating whether I should actually try to do this and test, or should I try to get Jeb into orbit, and I'm gonna, yeah, no spoiler alert here, I'm not actually spoiling it for you, because I've already decided I'm gonna get him into orbit. Now, you can watch and see in this view you can see the streaks of air that come from having to fight drag. But we're not going to be doing that this time around. So I'll slow this thing down, and that's gonna eliminate the drag. The effects that you see with the drag. So as we see here, the orbit is climbing upward at a slow but steady pace. Ironically enough, it might actually be drag that is helping us along the way. The air is crashing further into the lower side of the ship and pushing it farther upward. There is lower pressure on this side of the ship, and it is dragging it further upward, which is a neat little trick when you think about it. But I like my fuel efficiency. There we see the drag. We are now approaching the peak of the orbit, of the trajectory, so just to prove to you that I did indeed include enough delta V, that wasn't easy to follow now, was it? But we've completed the orbit Kerbal contract with its singular parameter. We've earned almost 10,000 more credits, 2 science, 3 reputation, and we now have the entered orbit milestone. So I'll see you back at the center, and From Mission Control, we'll accept the Explore Kerbal contract. And all we gotta do is return to Kerbal from orbit. And I think I know who it is we put in orbit. It's Jebediah. And we can also exploit that other contract, that test contract, to earn us some juicy science. We'll make the burn at the highest point, or what is approximately the highest. We'll then take advantage of drag to save fuel. And now, the moment of truth. Am I going to be able... As I was saying, will we be able to complete the test of the TD12 decoupler? The answer, hopefully, is a resounding yes. As we will show, as we will prove from exploiting the drag of the planet's atmosphere. So we just gotta wait to fall a little lower before we even think about decoupling. We'll empty out all that liquid fuel. Don't let the fucking shit go to waste. This sadly means we won't actually be able to make it back to the Kerbal Space Center exactly, but we can compensate for that once we have the technology to make airplanes. Now, airplanes are planet-bound, unlike space planes, which can leave the planet, go into orbit, and jump orbit, like like some spaceships can, and motherships will be able to do. So we're just about out of fuel, but we don't want to actually do the decoupling yet. There we go, we've done it! And we have some more of that juicy science, that moolah, that rep. So we earned 9,300 credits just about from that. And it's just so satisfactory. I'll see you back on the ground. Alright, we have more science for returning from orbit and from exploring. Yeah, it was a milestone too. And we get a reputation for milestones as well, in case you don't remember. This should be an okay configuration to do our tests with. Wow, I completely forgot that I wasn't actually recording, but I managed to do the test nonetheless. At some point, I feared that I might not come down safely with all that weight on, so I jettisoned the liquid fuel. Was it just crashing down there? Yeah, I jettisoned the liquid fuel system because I feared it would make the ship too heavy to come down safely. So, we're virtually touching down already. I was unable to get any new science because we've already done the crew report. We can't do the EVA off of Kirby's surface yet. But the important thing is we ran the test successfully. We got back safely. We can run some more tests. We'll take the swivel liquid fuel engine landed at Kerbal, and the launch sites actually count as landed, which is cool. It wouldn't make sense to count otherwise. We'll also take this heat shield one. We may as well milk the region for as much science as we can acquire, because we could use it in the near future. And that's the contract completed. And I'm staying in this scene for a few more seconds because I really don't want the scenes to change too often at the risk of looking too much like SpongeBob SquarePants, which is infamous for its fast-paced scene change. And we have only enough time more to accept one more contract. As we can see, we have a perfect record with our contracts so far. I'm here to show you that in Kerbal Space Program, even in a super hardcore playthrough, you are capable. It is possible to get perfect record on contracts that you are offered, which is neat. Oh, when you think about it. So I'll sign off, and next time we're going to retrieve Valentina Kerman from orbit.